Hello and welcome to Cannes Lions 2016. My name's Alex Brownsell. I'm the editor of M&M Global. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Thomas Crampton, the Global Managing Director for Social at Ogilvy, and we're slightly in a hushed environment off the busy Quasi, which is lovely, frankly, because it's quite sort of hellish out there sometimes, even in the beautiful sunshine. But thank you for freeing up some time to talk to us. How are you finding the festival so far?
It's been great. The festival is a fantastic place to hear about what are the next trends, what's happening, see some of the great work that's happened in the previous year, see colleagues, see clients, and meet some of the coming generation of creative, which is what I spent most of the morning doing.
But what kind of the sort of big trends that you're noticing, just conversationally, or from some of the work that you're seeing? Is there anything that that you think might be a bit of a theme this year?
There has not been a meeting I have gone into where online video has not been a major point of conversation. I think it was important in previous years as well, obviously, but I feel that it just has gone up a tick, and I think that's partly due to Facebook's push with Facebook Live, the amount of viewers, the views that Facebook is finding on the online videos, and everybody struggling to come to terms with this medium, which is now being realized as a mass medium rather than just as something that's a sideline.
Yeah, and I mean, is that something that I'm interested in? Is that something that brands are talking about, or is that something more that the agencies and the technology companies are talking about, or advertisers really kind of cottoning onto this now?
For me, it's been brands and creatives. So creatives in, I guess, agencies, but
are excited.
Excited by it. But the brands also are really struggling with it. Some of the conversations are around how do we execute it? How do we make sure that it's best practice? One of the challenges that it often, in the past, the TV ads have just been placed onto a social platform, and that's it. But now they're learning they have to adapt and go through the shift of paradigm, move from what was one form of video to a form of video that is relevant for an online platform rather than a TV ad.
Yeah, well, and as well as the assets, the kind of creative itself. I mean, it seems to be what's interesting is the changing methods by which you actually get to that audience that's going to help project the piece of content further. And I believe that you've commissioned some interesting research around influencers, and there's a lot of talk about online influencers and these sort of trendy YouTubers, but actually there's more complicated than that. I believe looking at the next people, the super sharers. I love that phrase when I was reading through the research. So what was the kind of aim that you were trying to find out?
We always try and do some research, often timing with Cannes, which is trying to push forward understanding for our clients of where the trends are going and what are the things that they have to pay attention to and what are the new ways that they have to behave to reach audiences and have impact on their businesses. And the interesting thing is influence has sort of gone full circle. 6 years ago, influence was very important, but it was seen more as bloggers equal influencer equals journalist. So sort of this, suddenly there was a super empowered class of person called a blogger. Now influencer has moved towards that creative element you're talking about, which is creator influencers. And what we've found is that it's also on the sharing front extremely important. While when you put up a video, and we did a study of nearly 100 videos across the UK and US markets to understand what made them successful in terms of their virality, in terms of the speed at which they were shared, the length of time they were shared, the amount of times that the people left comments on them and that sort of thing. And we had a number of findings. One of the interesting ones was, in fact, as you said, that there's a second tier of influencers. So you might have your Kim Kardashian who tweets about it. Or retweets it, but it's really that second tier, which is they're smaller influencers that are going to have a very big impact on the success of that video. Yeah, and they influence it by sharing it, or I think it was if those people share it with a comment that adds a bit of contextuality. That seems which is a very interesting one.
Supercharge it even further.
Yeah, and this is all the exploration. We were talking a moment ago about one of the elements of creativity you have at a festival like this. Is yes, creativity is something that's extremely important and difficult to do in a static environment. Added to that, we're in this moving environment where to successfully do something creatively, you have to change it, and you have to take into account all of these changes of the platforms, such as these different elements that are going to make creative sing that much more to an audience when they're viewing it on their mobile phone.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting point. I think you're sort of maybe perhaps alluding to is that, you know, when we talk about creativity and how marketing creativity is changing, you know, we talk about social media, we talk about the new technologies available to brands and advertisers, but actually, is it consumers that are in a sense redefining it because what they are happy to receive and what will engage them is changing? Therefore, we're having to change our mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And the consumers are driving it. And what's happening is a lot of the brands are trying to catch up to where consumers are. The brands are still in the mindset often of it needs to be a TVC. And okay, we've got the TVC now, let's post it on. That's a video, we put it online.
Yeah.
And what we found in this study in particular, a lot of the branded content is really ill-suited for the mobile environment. So it doesn't have, it requires sound. It doesn't, and if it doesn't require sound, often it will be a negative, a less optimal experience. You need to have, subtitles and an optimal experience for the online video. It's just, most people watch online video on silent.
Yeah.
You have to have the narrative arc, very active part at the beginning, not overly branded at the start, but active. It doesn't mean you don't have your brand in it, actually, is what we found. You can have your brand in it and make it successful, but you just have to have the brand in an appropriate way. If it's a spaghetti sauce, you're not going to have a big logo at the beginning. It'll be on the table, and then you can build up to the moment where you have that closer relationship where you're showing the actual brand.
One of the things we were talking about earlier as well is that, actually the way that this social revolution is taking place is now being dictated not by necessarily what's coming out of Silicon Valley, but what's coming out of Asia and China, and the rise of WeChat is shaping perhaps what Facebook's up to next.
Yes.
And do you kind of sense there is almost a fundamental shift in the way that innovation is taking place in media and marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. And the big shift that you're referring to there is WeChat, basically. WeChat, which is WhatsApp on steroids. It's a platform that allows you to share in a Facebook-style feed. It's also a platform that allows you to do payments. It's a platform that allows you to divide the cost of a restaurant. One of my favorite ones is in Beijing. When you go to a restaurant, everybody suddenly just stands up and leaves. And you're like, who's paying the bill?
Yeah. One
person has already paid the bill, and they've sent out via WeChat to everyone at the table, you owe me 17 renminbi or whatever the cost of the supper is. So it sort of removes this whole thing of dividing the bill at the end of the meal. They have not yet figured out how to divide up who drank more wine than anybody else. But it changes the way that people share and exchange. And the interesting part about it is WeChat has already moved into the commerce end of things, where Facebook Messenger has not yet gone. Facebook Messenger, its strategy, from everything David Marcus describes, and he's actually explicitly said, is to move it towards where WeChat already is. And if you look at his background, he's formerly PayPal. So by Mark Zuckerberg putting somebody formerly at PayPal in charge of Facebook Messenger, he's clearly sending a message about what he's trying to accomplish with it. And that playbook of what we've learned in China is very, very important. And it's challenging for brands. They're moving into an environment where it's not this open sharing environment. It's much more closed, and the barrier to entry to being in somebody's pocket is very, very high.
Yeah, and final question, and around that, if you've got this kind of collision of marketing, traditional marketing communications, if you like, with technology, with commerce, and these other factors all coming together, it must make it hugely complicated for clients. And is that one of the biggest challenges, is trying to guide those guys through this?
Yeah, absolutely, because and the learnings of one market are important or are not important, given the changes. And we've seen just the way that people watch videos, the way that people spend their time in online environments can vary in very subtle ways. And when you're talking about something like social, it's, if you don't take into account those subtle changes, you could have a campaign that's a success in one market and utterly fails in another, for the want of a minor tweak.
Well, it'll be fascinating seeing what happens, what wins over the next few days as well. Best of luck, and
thank you
very much for your time.
Thank you very much.